Welcome to Voice of Reason, the world's most famous podcast in the tri-state area in Philadelphia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, or I should say Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, New York City, and more. We're on the move here today at the Bluebell Inn. Place opened since 1743, and today we're here at the live remote session. Of course, every Monday night, the remote session of the WBCB 1490 AM Levittown radio station show, owned by the voice of the Eagles, Merrill Reese, has the Bull and Baker session. Who is the Bull and Baker, and who is the Baker? Dan Baker, the greatest in-ring stadium announcer in the history of our illustrious business. His partner and Phillies Hall of Famer Greg the Bull Luzinski host a show every Monday night at different locations. Tonight, of course, we are here at the Bluebell Inn. The second straight week that Bull and Baker session has been on, has been live here. And today, their special guest, Bob Boone, considered the greatest catcher in Philadelphia Phillies history. Man, it was caught over 2,000 career games in baseball history, and today we are actually listening in on their show, and they're hopefully going to be, I just gave a card to Dan Baker, and Dan actually was reading about my article. I was definitely thrilled to listen to that. Well, just shook the hand of Dan and had a nice chat with him a few minutes ago. It's just such a thrill every time I can see him. Now, he is going to join us immediately after the show here on the audio edition of the Voice of Reason podcast. And of course, we have a great week ahead of us. The King of Philadelphia resumes tonight. We'll hopefully be there tonight as well as tomorrow. Wednesday, of course, the finals, and then Friday, the 10th and 11th grade finals. It should be a great day. It should be a great week. Thursday, you'll catch us at the Philadelphia Eagles game. So we'll be doing live statistics. Tonight, we intend to have Dan Baker. We also intend to have Greg Luzinski. If he does not come on, we'll definitely be talking to tonight's guest, the greatest Phillies catcher in the history. They're going to talk about, of course, Bob Boone. And Bob, of course, for those of you who don't know, Bob is one of many baseball families in baseball history. His sons, of course, Brett and Aaron. We'll talk about that name of why his real name is Robert Raymond. He's going to talk about that hopefully with us, all that and more. And Dan Baker will talk about what his relationship was like with Dave Zinkoff, considered the greatest Philadelphia PA announcer in the history of our city, a man who's been doing the business for 45 years. And it's all this and more here on another edition of Voice of Reason. All right, Bluebell Inn, and I want to thank them again, as mentioned, for allowing us to stay here for a few minutes. And I've got a star-studded panel here today on Voice of Reason. One of my, Dan Baker, the voice of the Phillies, one of my favorite probably announcers, and one of my dearest friends who I've known for many, many years. And, of course, to the left, the greatest Phillies catcher in the history of baseball, the man of many families, the great Bobby Boone. Gentlemen, first off, it's great to see both of you. Great to have you again. Actually, nice meeting you for the first time. You're one of the many guests I've had where I'm actually meeting for the first time, and it's so good to have you on. And what a fan I was of myself. My dad, of course, loved you in 1980 when you caught that the final out for the late Tug McGraw.
Well, Tug was pretty special, and that was a special time, and it's something that, that last fastball he threw by Willie Wilson was certainly something that we relished, and we're waiting for 10 years to get to that point.
Well, so I mentioned that your name when I first started the show was, I believe, Robert Raymond. Now, your father played.
It still is.
It is. No, it never changed. So your father, Ray Boone, your two sons, Aaron and Brett. Aaron now working at ESPN. What has your son, Brett, been up to these days?
Well, Brett's got a lot of things going. Twins.
Really?
So he's got a bunch of things going, but that's right his main interest right now. They just had their first practice night before last.
And you've been still part of the Philadelphia. What are you doing with yourself these days?
I work for the Washington Nationals. I've been there for 15 years. And
you like it, though? You really enjoy it?
I definitely like it.
We recently, of course, lost a catcher by the name of Darren Dalton. What was that like when, of course, he came in 1980, the year the Phillies won the World Series? What was it like being around a guy like Dutch?
Well, I didn't really meet Dutch until we got into these Wall of Fame and the alumni things. He's a special guy, and he's certainly beloved by all of his teammates. And we're going to miss him, and it's a very sad time for us.
Well, I want to bring in the next guest of ours, and I want you to stay right here, the man that I've known for many, many years. For his 45th year in baseball, the great Dan Baker. First of all, it's great to see you, as always, my friend. And how are you feeling these days?
I'm feeling great.
You look great.
Yeah, this is 46 years with the Phils.
I thought it was 40.
I feel very privileged to be here.
Well, you know that, like I said, the history between us certainly goes back a good ways. Myself in high school, yourself in the pros. That's always nice when I get to tell people that our paths certainly crossed with two of the greatest PA announcers in the city.
Well, thank you.
Well, that's yeah. Well, that's an honor on my end as well. What was it? Tell us what it was like. Of course, starting in the early '70s, being around a guy like this man here.
Well, it was a privilege to announce Bob Boone and Greg Luzinski and Steve Carlton, Mike Schmidt,
Yes.
Larry Boa, and to see them, Jake, this past weekend, Manny Trio was back.
Yes.
Bake McBride. You realize that there's a great tradition here. Phillies baseball and sports in our city, as you know, Jake. You're very prominent in basketball. We're very lucky to be a part of this fabric.
Well, one thing I can definitely say is that I enjoy just being around the Philadelphia sports scene. And this weekend, again, we did have Wall of Fame. But recently, we also had sorrow. The great and late Darren Dalton passed away, the third Philly of a brain tumor, John Vukovich and the late Tug McGraw. What was Darren Dalton like to you?
He was a great man, a great leader. He not only was a very good player, and by the way, the last catcher to lead either the American League or National League in RBIs, 109 in 1992. That's quite an achievement. But his leadership, the way he treated people, the way he represented the Phillies, great.
Bob, what was it like being around a guy like Dan Baker and Greg Luzinski, who it's kind of seemed like it was like a high school reunion for you, I guess?
Well, anytime you come back and see not only Dan and Greg, but all of the kind of legends that are brought back here in the alumni, it's always a joy to see everybody.
And you're part of a great baseball family, again, as mentioned. There's the Alus, the Molinas, and what was it like, I guess, being part of a baseball family that, again, as mentioned, was part of baseball with Ray and Aaron and Brett?
Well, we know that's really special, but for all of us, it was very normal.
Yes.
As unique as we know it is. It's the way I was raised. It's the way my kids were raised. That was just us. So
right.
It wasn't special. We knew it was special, but it really was nothing out of the ordinary.
You had a great day here today. You were golfing, I understand. How was that today?
No, I was horrible golfing. It's a great day for us, but me and golf aren't getting along recently.
And final question, of course, for you, Mr. Baker. Philadelphia Phillies, of course, sort of in a little bit of the cellar, but the future is definitely bright. Reese Hoskins was recently brought up. What does the future stand for this baseball team?
Well, success in all sports is cyclical, and we're in a little bit of a down trend these last couple of years, but the Phillies are rebuilding, as Bob said on the air and Greg said on the air. We have many reasons to be optimistic. There are many. In fact, Jake, there are more good young prospects in the Phillies farm system now than at any time that I can remember. And, of course, I saw Bob and Greg and Larry and Mike come up in the 70s and, in the mid-2000s. Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins. Now, will any of the current group of great young Phillies prospects translate into the stars like these gentlemen? That's hard to say, but we have so many of them. At least I think there's a good chance that some guys are going to emerge.
What is it like seeing the current stars, being that you're, of course, an old, great, legendary star? What is it like seeing Miguel Franco and Tommy Joseph and Reese Hoskins and then Nick Williams?
Well, I'm still a Philly
Yes,
at
you
heart. And you like seeing that, And there's going to be some other Phillies we don't even know about yet that end up making the Phillies great again. And but I see a lot of them in the minor leagues when I'm seeing our teams from Harrisburg and Hagerstown. I was just in Lakewood and seeing those kids come up. You never know what's going to happen. You know they're great prospects, and you're just waiting to see, but can they handle this big show? So I'm sure it's gonna work out here. The Phillies are acquiring more and more young people that are good, and they're amassing some really talented kids.
From a man who has been around the base path for many years to a man who certainly has been in the journalistic path, we want to thank both. Dan Baker, of course, one of my favorite people. Always good to see you as well. And great to finally meet you, the great Bobby Boone, the man who has caught over 2,000, as Dan Baker said, and boy did he say it with such gusto, over 2,000 career games. Gentlemen, a pleasure to see you as always, and we'll definitely catch up with you, Dan Baker, Bobby Boone, here on Voice of Reason.
Thanks, Jake.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Boone. Once again, from all of us here at Voice of Reason, this has been a presentation of the world's most famous podcast, Voice of Reason. I'm Jake Schwartz again saying so long for the Bluebell Land. Don't forget, more action coming up this week, including the King of Philly Classic. Jake Schwartz, good night, everybody. All right, Jake Schwartz again back here outside the Bluebell Inn here at the WBCB radio show, 1490 AM. And we had a great star-studded panel of guests, the great Dan Baker, the voice of Philadelphia sports, the greatest in-ring announcer in the history of our business. And, of course, the man who caught over 2,000 career games, Phillies Wall of Famer, the great Bobby Boone, had just joined us again. And we do apologize again to the staff. Of course, our show was also, as they say, was because tonight's was officially part of the WBCB radio show that you can listen to every Monday night, the Bull and Baker Show. Greg Luzinski, the great Dan Baker, who hosts a show every Monday night on WBCB radio. And you can find them at WBCB1490.com and WBC, or listen on the dial at WBCB 1490 every Monday 6 to 7. Where you can find their website WBCB1490.com for upcoming shows. But again, every Monday night until the end of baseball season, 6 to 7. Again, it was a pleasure to interview them. And again, we want to we apologize to WBCB again. So we are crediting that this is a show for WBCB that Voice of Reason was able to come in and do a quick interview with. And we appreciate, again, Mr. Dan Baker and Mr. Bob Boone joining us. So, again, for more information on Voice of Reason, visit us at Voice of Reason on Twitter, at Jacob Schwartz 23. Thank you, WBCB 1490. Visit their website, WBCB1490.com, or listen on the dial of WBCB on 1490 AM. We'll see you again soon. Good night, everybody.